Hey guys, what is going on? Welcome back to another video, and well, today's video is going to be all about what happened to Shay Patrick Cormac after the event of Assassin's Creed Rogue. Now, as you can see here, I'm just changing my outfit to, so you can see his face a bit more. Yeah, I take quite a while. But anyway, in today's video, we're going to be exploring the many possibilities of what could have actually happened to Shay Patrick Cormac after the events of Assassin's Creed Rogue. Now, just a spoiler warning, this will probably include spoilers for Assassin's Creed 3, Assassin's Creed Unity, obviously Assassin's Creed Rogue, of the sort. So if you guys haven't played any of those games yet, which, to be honest, considering the age of this game and many other like older games in the franchise, I'd be surprised if you haven't played any of them. But anyway, without further ado, let's basically get into the video. So yeah. So I think to definitively answer what exactly happened to Shay, we do need to take a little look at his background and his basically his backstory, just to sort of see how he was when he was younger and see if that has had any influence on how he is now and how he potentially might be in the future. Okay, so now that you guys have been able to read a bit more about, Shay's backstory, I think it's probably time to read some of the epilogue. So obviously what happens after the main story of the game. It's quite vague in terms of like what it describes and stuff, especially towards the end when it's like, oh yeah, Shay can, go on to his next like sort of missions with the Order, but it's still a part of the story that is quite valuable, even if it is very vague as to what happens to Shay Patrick Cormac. Alright, so here we are, we're in Versailles, just doing some stuff. Nah, I'm just sort of replaying the mission here just to give you guys a sort of, the last sort of mission. So obviously the last we sort of play as Shay, we can see obviously he's in Paris with Benjamin Franklin going to kill Charles Dorian. I mean, after he does this, we don't really get much on Shay again. Like, there's pretty much nothing in the databases or anything. However, we know later on from the books, so I suppose this is a bit of spoiler for the books, but by Matthew Kirby, the book Assassin's Creed The Last Descendant, we know that Shay had a grandson called Cudgel Cormac, who was around in the not 1960s, the 1860s, New York, and he was sort of a mercenary, would you say? You know, he had some sort of relation to the Templar Order, obviously, since he was Shay's grandson, but it's obviously stated in the book, that Shay did in fact train Cudgel Cormac, which puts Shay, to be honest, if we think about it, so Shay must have lived up until, I'd say, about the 1820s, because let's say Cudgel's, because since Cudgel's around the 1860s in New York, Cudgel has to be at least 40, I'd say, personally, which puts, like, Shay, in terms of 1820s, that puts Shay at, like, 90? Well, 1820s, does it put him at 90? 1890-ish, I think. Shay was born, like, 1731. So, you know, obviously by this point, he's quite old, is Shay. But we do know he does train Cudgel, which indicates, obviously, that Cudgel is probably in his 40s or 30s. So, youngish, all this middle age, I'd say Cudgel is. Which obviously indicates that Shay was still around after about the 1800s, which is obviously good news, because we all like the Irish man. But yeah, that's quite good. That's basically the only piece of information we get after this point in time about Shay. Even in Unity, I know it doesn't mention Shay one bit. The Assassin Brotherhood, or the French Brotherhood, they do not mention Shay. They just, you know, it's almost like Shay's been wiped out from the history books. Yeah, just a little side note. I get detected you like an absolute idiot. I didn't think you'd assassinate him. I thought you couldn't. Never mind, anyway. But yeah, so really, it's quite vague. Is a story on Shay's life. It's quite a short game. In general, he's rogue. But obviously, as we find out towards the end, Connor did undo his Templar business in the colonies, which obviously, since Shay isn't present in the colonies and probably hasn't been present in the colonies for a little while, you know, obviously it's implied that he hasn't been in the colonies for a while because he'd know about Connor undoing his Templar business, which he doesn't act shocked, but, you know, he's a little sort of, you know, Shay's a bit sort of surprised, if you will, but he doesn't act too shocked. That implies Shay hasn't been to the colonies. For whatever reason, I don't know why Shay hasn't been to the colonies. Could be the Assassins. Obviously, when Achilles retired, the Assassin Brotherhood did sort of get built back up. I mean, Connor was the only sort of disciple, if you will. But like Charles says, Connor did undo Shay's Templar business, indicating that the Assassin Brotherhood was reborn, as Bellic says in Unity. Which it's quite interesting, actually, because, you know, I know I've said, but we get no more records, we get no more sort of references to Shay other than in the book. And Shay's Mon descendant is Javier Mondragon. I don't know how to say it with the accent, I'm sorry, guys. But yeah, he's Shay's descendant, modern day descendant. So I think it's quite interesting that we don't really get much information on Shay. I mean, especially since, yeah, it was sort of a side game. It wasn't sort of an important game, was Rogue, but it did give us a perspective into. It's the only game that's given us perspective into sort of the life of a Templar, if you will. But anyway, we're about to reach the point actually where Charles says, you know, Charles Dorian says, oh, you know, Connor undid the business, which, you know, I'll just let this one play out for you guys. I mean, yeah. You obviously can't hear this, but subtitles, luckily. It's quite cool, actually, I think. Yeah, like, Shay doesn't seem too bothered, and I suppose he probably has in the back of his mind, he's probably quite surprised, you know. Anyway, to wrap things up, what actually happens after the events of Assassin's Creed Rogue, what happens to Shay Cormac? It's a mystery, really, other than the fact that we know he probably lives until about the 1820s, maybe later. I mean, he lives old enough to train his grandson, and if his grandson's around in the 1960s, I reckon that puts his grandson at least 40 years old, maybe. So, you know, which is it's about middle age, and that's quite a good age actually for those days. Believe it or not, I think the average lifespan of like a Victorian was probably about 30 years old, which was quite low, obviously, because of the big cities and industrial revolution and such. So, yeah, quite interesting. So anyway, to answer the question, what happens to Shay Patrick Cormac after the events of Assassin's Creed Rogue? We don't know definitively, but we probably do know that we do know he survives well into 1800s to train his grandson. So, wow, good on you, Shay. So, anyway, to sort of wrap things up, anyway, final conclusion, obviously we don't definitively know what happens to Shay, as I stated previously before. It could be I don't know, he dies sometime in the 1800s, which I reckon is probably the most probable answer. Is he assassinated? I think chances are no, because it's not mentioned he is, and, you know, I mean, there's no real reason that Shay would be a threat to the Brotherhood anymore at such an old age. So, I mean, yeah. But anyway, thank you all so much for watching this, well, somewhat shorter video. I don't usually do videos, but I thought I'd try and play around. It's probably not one of my best videos as this, but if you guys want more videos instead of streams, let me know. More Assassin's Creed lore probably will be, probably will be coming out to you guys soon. So anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Just let me know what you think about the video thing in the chat below, and I will see you guys in the next video or stream. Thank you. Goodbye.